Watch Doors of Perception, now on Amazon Prime.
I think it's just going to get weirder and weirder and weirder, and finally it's going to be so weird that people are going to have to talk about how weird it is. Eventually people are going to say, what the hell is going on? It's not enough to say it's nuts, you have to explain why it's so nuts. The invention of artificial life, the cloning of human beings, possible contact with extraterrestrials, the systems which are in place to keep the world sane are utterly inadequate to the forces that have been unleashed.
Welcome back to Forbidden Knowledge News. I'm your host, Chris Matthew. Today my guest is Heidi Love. First, if you have made donations to help with production of our upcoming film and you've not heard back from me personally, please email me forbiddenknowledgenews@gmail.com. If you donated $50 or more, we have gifts for you. If you haven't heard, the other day I was hit by a drunk driver which totaled my car. I'm thankfully okay, but the vehicle is our primary travel vehicle and it's out of commission. We're working with an attorney to get this resolved, but it seems the other driver was not insured. It's a whole thing. It causes a very painful delay in production, among other things. So we are continuing our fundraiser for a bit. If you make a donation of $50 or more, you're going to get downloads of both of the films. You're going to get a PDF of a warning from history and the audiobook version, as well as a one-on-one discussion with myself or a podcast. Anything is greatly appreciated. We have links for you right in the description. Be sure to also watch my film, Doors of Perception. It's available now on Amazon Prime. We are booking guests for August. If you have suggestions or you'd like to be a guest, email me forbiddenknowledgenews@gmail.com. Today I want to welcome back to the show Heidi Love. She is host of Unfiltered Rise podcast. She shares her insights from her journey and escape from a Mormon cult. She's also a psychiatric nurse that works to help others struggling with mental health issues. Heidi, welcome back. How you doing?
Good. I'm excited to be here. We were talking a little before we were deciding what to do, and I made this great presentation, and you're going to be the first one on the revamp of this.
Oh, excellent. So. I can't wait. This is such a fun topic. It's also a very concerning and frightening topic at times. It relates to the channeling of entities that are known as the Nine. Now, what we're going to be discussing today focuses on Andrea Puharich and that group that channeled these beings through a seance and were given information. But the Nine seems to show up throughout history, giving information to people, being channeled, these very powerful cosmic entities. So I'm very much looking forward to hearing more about this. Before we get too deep into it, though, it's been a little while since you've been on. Remind the audience a little bit about yourself and let them know where they can find you.
You bet. I'm super excited to be here and present this. Like I said, I redid this presentation because it needed some revamp. I found out some new stuff. You're always going down these rabbit holes. If you're like us, we get like this. So as a podcaster, right? And mine is called the Unfiltered Rise podcast. And I have everything from, a lot of Mormon content because I used to be one. So it's ex-Mormon content. And usually it's all factual beginnings. Sometimes I give my perspective, but mostly researched topics for that. And then also I have a lot of conspiracy theories because I'm fascinated by them. So that's me. And I am everywhere podcasts are served, unfilteredrisepodcast.com, and on the Occult Rejects. I'm an Occult Reject since I
Right on. So. Well, awesome. Looking forward to getting into this. Where do you want to start?
Well, I have a slideshow because I am such a creature of a picture's worth 1,000 words, because everything I've ever done in my life anyway has been semi-controversial. So I tried to back it up, right? You got to back up what you're saying. You can't just be full of nonsense and, saying whatever. I think there's got to be some basis, even if it's one of those things where it's subjective, it still should be some sort of something. I mean, really.
Right
Yeah.
on.
So I started making these and they help me stay in my position too. So it's a good way to
Oh,
do
for
it.
sure.
And let's see if you can see this.
I
Can you see that photo?
yes.
Okay, perfect. And none of the other junk in my
No,
background.
just
I had like 20 windows open. You're
yeah,
good.
that's good.
So this particular this seance, is, you're right, about these 9 entities, and they were contacted, and this was actually set up at a seance that we're going to speak about, but I'm going to try to pronounce these because these are going to come into play. This is just my rendition of it. It's not the real whatever, it's just to show people. And they were the gods worshipped at Heliopolis. And so Atum is the sun god, Shu was the god of air, Tefnut, goddess of moisture, Thiel's god of earth, Nut, goddess of sky, Osiris, member of the Aeneid, Isis, member of the Aeneid, Seth, member of the Aeneid, and Neptethys, I think is how you say that, is member of the Aeneid. So these are, and I don't know for sure on those. I did my best.
Works
on the
for me.
But and this guy here, and this is a really cleaned up picture of him. This is Andrea Puharich, which he's well known for the telepathy tapes and the Space Kids. And, he's got a really crazy history. Actually, if anybody wants to read, he's got some amazing things, and I'll show some books that he has. But he organized this seance back in 1952, intended to channel these 9 entities.
Now, for those that aren't familiar, could you just tell us a little bit more about him and his background?
Yeah, you betcha. Well, and he's got multiple. Oh, that went fast. So I've got multiple slides.
Oh, right on.
Well,
if we're going to get to it either way, continue.
Yep, you're good. You're good. And honestly, I truly believe after all of my research into him, he's a 3-letter agency. Person, but every one of these people that were in this seance either become authors, continue extra dimensional, I will say, contact and different things, or go into government, strangely enough, after this seance. Yeah, this is a weird situation. But Andrea, he goes on to work with mushrooms. He's a huge part of the Faraday cages. He's the original tinfoil hat guy. He started a dental program where he could do bone to ear technology, literally. And this was actually, it worked. And he would put it in the fillings of people, and they would do this while they were asleep. And he did some really I've got a whole bunch of slides that I didn't put in here that are pretty questionable for him with kids. I'm not going to point fingers, but he definitely had some interesting things going on at the turkey farm, is what he called that. But this was where the kids were. And there's one particular gal that gives her message. And I think I have a slide of her as well. But it talks about the different things he was searching out for people with natural born spiritual abilities, we'll say. And she was one of those people. And she's really, her situation is really sad now. If you do go to her website, it's a little bit of a situation, and it was sad. So, but he did serve as the captain at Edgewood Arsenal, working on these hallucinogenic drugs. Like I said, he's looking for this psychic ability. These are multiple books that he has written, including, the telepathy studies he did. And his studies have now actually been declassified. And so they're real. Yeah, people always used to just say he's a crazy kook guy, he's crazy. And I'm like, no, not really. Mm-mm. And so he was a close associate in the 70s of Ira Einhorn. He did work for the CIA in the 50s, and then he gets tied up with Uri Geller in the 70s. And he's the bending spoons guy, if anybody doesn't know about him. But he definitely does a ton of work on these hallucinogenic properties, and he does do quite a bit with the Stanford Research Institution. And so, he's in the club.
I've had Dr. Tard on the show before. That's an interesting character.
Oh, okay. I don't know about Dr.
Russell Targ.
I will have to write this. Oh, Russell.
Yeah.
Oh, gotcha. So, and these guys here, Russell Targ right there. Dr. Hal Putoff. I always concentrate on Putoff. I didn't know Targ was still around.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Wrote a couple of books recently. He did the Third
Ooh.
Eye Spies documentary, and that's when I had him on after that documentary came out. But yeah, very questionable and interesting character.
Right. All of these people seem to be, and it's very strange and interesting. And I will say this for Puharik, he's gone and passed, but his son is working on a current documentary, I believe, that is going to come out soon. I was in contact with his son, and I think he'll come on after that's all released and everything.
Yeah.
But even if he doesn't, super interesting. It's on its way out. Keep your eyes open for that. But he's definitely, like I said, he's in this club of Stanford Research Institute people, and he doesn't have a whole lot of, I won't say he was a horrible guy, but he did a lot of on the edge stuff. When you watch that movie, Stranger Things, that whole series, I mean, it is so close to some of the stuff he was doing that why I watched it, I went, oh my gosh, this is real. I know this story. Like, it's weird when you do that and it's all of a sudden right there in your face, isn't it? It's kind of a strange situation. And these are just pictures of all these characters with the Stanford Research Institute. So, and this is Geller, Uri Geller, the spoon bender, which, there's a lot of back and forth about. It was really easy to discredit Puharik because he started getting into these mushrooms so heavy, and they were running around, and he links up with Uri, and they're just doing, all kinds of things where they're contacting things, or are they just high as shit? Like, well, I don't
most
know.
Most of these guys, in our modern age are working with this institution called the Farsight Institute with a gentleman named Courtney Brown, and they are doing remote viewing and publishing the information that comes out. And some of the information has been pretty prophetic, and it's very interesting, but they're all still in operation doing woo-woo shit.
Oh, and the woo-woo stuff is real, but the problem is he got so wild. He got so up in it that, like, it was so easy for them to say, this guy's cuckoo crazy. And look, he's bending spoons with him, so he's cuckoo crazy. And even Uri Geller was like, he's kind of crazy. And he gets to a point where he gets away from him too. And this poor guy that does all this serious research just gets completely ran over at the end of his life. And it was kind of sad. I mean, I'm not saying, look, I have photos of that girl and him where he is holding her like a bride, and she is 14. I am sorry that to me screams creep vibe. I'm not saying he was okay or wasn't. Maybe that was just a different time and place, right? Like, her mother was there. But these kids that would go live on this quote unquote turkey farm in his house, they would be put up in his area, and then they would turn around and they would get them there, and then they would say, hey, you have to pay for your room and board here. And he would kind of make money off of them and stuff. So it was a little dirty. And then he took her on tour. I don't know if you know this, clear to like see the Queen and all kinds of wild shit. I'm going to be doing more on the Space Kids, but it doesn't particularly tie in to this specific one. But I like to mention it because it is a vast, like, we could have 20 different podcasters doing stuff on this. And it would be, it would still be so much left for every single one of us, right? Like, one person could do one section of his life, another section. But it was sad because, like Tesla, what did they do to him at the end? And I'm not saying he didn't maybe deserve it. Like, I don't know what was happening with those kids. I do know that girl that I keep mentioning, she's in a satanic rock band now. She's like super into Satanism, like weird shit. And I'm not saying, like, if you're a Satanist, go ahead, be a Satanist, whatever. Like, my thing is, don't lie to people, right? That's, people always say, you hate Mormons. And I'm like, I don't hate Mormons. I think Mormons are a magical order that use people for their magical stuff. So that's bullshit. And that's why I speak out. But like, I don't care what anyone does. Like, it's your life, In
the same way, as long as
like,
you're
why do we
not
care?
harming anyone or stealing anything.
No kids or animals.
Especially children. Do what the hell you want, man.
Right. No kids and animals, knock your boots off,
Yeah.
whatever. But you may get some things that come home with you. So
Yeah,
just letting you guys know. And these people that he worked with, like I said, these are not like little people. These are like LSD researchers, MK Ultra people, James Ketchum. You know, they're weaponizing the mind. We get into Laurel Canyon, Operation Paperclip. Like this is just a quick run. This is like the tiniest rundown. He worked briefly for Larry Layton. This guy is like obviously connected enough that this is a little scary in my opinion, right? Like it's a little, you know, but he was really into, like you said, extrasensory perception, and his work is actually being declassified as we speak. So during this time, these early years, he hooks up with these very elite people, which it's very strange. The company he keeps talks a lot. And the whole reason, this is like my rabbit hole into JFK. I never cared about JFK because I said, like, yeah, it's fake. Look, like, yeah, whatever they say is a lie. They set this up. It was a coup. And I don't care about the bullet. Like, I don't care about any of that. This is just one big fat lie. You know, like that was so simple for me. Little did I know, right? I don't care about the grassy knoll. I don't care about the direction. I don't care about the bullet. What I care about are the people arranging this in the background and possibly the mind control games they play. And that starts basically where we're going to start today at this 1952 seance. And it's organized by Andrea, and it's intended to channel the nine. Like I said, it finally took place June, if I could read my own writing, 27th, 1953. And they contact the Aeneid, the Egyptian gods. And Michael Payne, well, these are some of the players. There's some not pictured. We got Andrea, Lyle Watson. I'm going to explain who all these people are. Alice Astor, Arthur Young, Ruth Forbes Payne. Now, it is important to have her middle name in there, and you guys will see why later. Harry and Georgia Jackson, Bonnie Beck, Carl Betts. Okay, so we've got these people, and they start getting super interesting. We've got Ava Alice Muriel Astor. Yes, the song John Jacob, you know, the whole Astor song, like I can't remember the whole thing, but he's in that one. He's in the Titanic, like all these connections to old money. And I'm talking really old money. And this gal, she is left all her money from her dad because he died. John Jacob Astor went down in the Titanic. And so he was, you know, a big deal back in the day. And this gal, she marries somebody super interesting. She married an OSS CIA agent, and she is also super into Helena Blavatsky's stuff. Okay. And she is all about this whole like situation with, you know, channeling and everything. Her first husband was in the Tsarist army, head of the OSS ops, and worked with the French Marquis. And so he was working with the French Marquis for D-Day in Normandy. And so this lady is no small, you know, nothing. Funny enough, you know, there seems to be always a trail of death, right? Like we see usually a sacrifice of some sort, if I may call it as such. And she is the one. She suddenly dies in her sleep for no apparent reason right after this happens. So she dies July 18th, 1956. And so this is right after, you know, the seance, pretty much a couple years later. She just drops dead in her sleep. And they said it was a stroke. And she's super young at the time. I can't remember how young, but she's like very markedly young. I think she was in her 30s. This one here, and we'll tie all these people together, but we're just going to have to go through them a little at a time. It's kind of, it's hard to make
Now, I want to
mesh,
remind the audience listening on the audio end, if you'd like to see the visuals with the presentation, go over to Rumble and you'll be able to check that out.
Awesome. Okay, so this is the Ruth Young that I wanted to make sure you guys knew her middle name, because it is the only marcation that we have for a very confusing situation that's going to arise. So Ruth Forbes Payne Young. Now there are some names, and boy, are they important. Originally a Forbes, so very nice little contact there. She was married and she had a son, Michael Payne. Some people may recognize that name. and we will get to Mr. Michael Payne. And she was married to, or no, that was her son. Yeah, that's her son. Yeah. And she was married to Arthur Young. And do you know who Arthur
It
Young
sounds
is?
so
I'm sure
familiar.
you do if you've studied this. So Arthur Young, we'll get to him too. It's very interesting. He is the inventor of the Bell helicopter.
Ah.
And her son is even more interesting. And she goes on later in life to be very involved in peacekeeping operations. It's very strange what she gets into. Very much New World Order type of behavior stuff. And
Wow.
yeah, it gets very weird with her as well. And she just starts this all of a sudden after her husband drops out of like normal society business world. She kind of picks it up. So it was like they almost switched sides in a way. It was strange. And then her, let's go to, it's out of order. Her husband, Arthur M. Young, here he is when he's young, inventor of the Bell helicopter. After this whole situation, he does quite the opposite. He drops out of society and he starts writing books on woo-woo stuff.
Right.
So he writes the Bell notes and he gets really into like alternative woo-woo, channeling. So obviously this made a huge impact on his life. This is him with the prototype for a helicopter. This is an early drone, I dare say. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of what it looks like. But he was this big inventor, and he also wrote this book. And this, boy, guys, if you want to know some things, I think they found out some things that they didn't talk about at this seance. The geometry of meaning. And what does John Dee talk about? Oh, he talks about how numbers are the language of God, right?
It's so interesting
And
how
it's
many of
really-
these that were involved either end up going into aerospace or major technology companies.
Oh, so wild. And look at the stuff that he's writing afterward. The reflexive universe. What? Like, I haven't had a chance to read this yet, and I'm going to be doing a deeper dive on Arthur Young because he is fascinating to me at this point. It just tells you so much. Like you said, all of a sudden we go from zero to hero on our aircraft after the war, during. It's just very strange, and Bell helicopter is a key reason why. And I'll tell you guys why when we get to the son. It's not his son, it's her son. But nevertheless, he helps raise him. So, he goes through the same situation like raising. So I put this in here because, well, we need to look at this little picture of her son. And I do believe it is the next one, maybe somewhere. Well, I thought I had a picture of Michael Young, but he ends up working at Bell Helicopter because of Arthur, right? He gets him a job there. And he is not here at the seance. I just want to bring that up. But he is intricately important with this knowledge. We're talking about knowledge gleaned from this whole situation. He gets him this job and he didn't have the security clearance for it. He just got in because of his stepdad being the inventor, basically, right? Like he's the guy, so let him in. And I mean, it's very, very weird who his boss ends up being, a straight up Nazi. And so he's working. Yeah, it's bad. So he becomes this research engineer at Bell Helicopter, like I said, and he has a boss named Dornberger. Well, you may have recognized that name, like obviously the Dornberger, who is pictured here with von Braun. And von Braun is interesting. I don't know if you know this. I don't think I knew this the last time I spoke with you. Von Braun's ties to the Mormons are super interesting. He ends up in a Mormon theological film that is created for Mormons only. Yeah. This is so weird. And he is in this film and helps make this film with the Mormons for the Mormons. And so whenever you have space, okay, I'm going to tell you guys, like, it's a 1 degree separation to Mormons. And it's a lot. I've done a whole thing on it. I can't remember his last name, Don something, and he was over NASA forever. Do you know the last name?
No, I sure don't.
Okay. Well, if anybody looks him up, he was over NASA forever. He was a Mormon. There's a bunch of them. It's not just like a single person,
crazy.
but like I said, yeah, right. It's like every time I do this, I'm like, this isn't true. Usually this is how I start my rabbit holes. I'm like, somebody tells me something weird. I'm like, that's bullshit. Never heard that. Never heard that day in my life. Right. And I get massacred for it later because guess what? Neither is anyone else, like the Mormons. And they're like, she's a lying person, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh Lord, I wished it was fake. Yeah. I don't know what to say. Like half of my family's still in.
That's how I feel about so much of these things and conspiracies that I've learned about. I wish it was fake, but it's absolutely 100% real.
Right?
Oh, good.
And so I just think, well, why do these players all have a connection to one another? We haven't even started about the seance yet. We're just going through these players that are at the game. And like I said, for reference, once again, Michael is not there, and neither is this woman. Do you know who she is?
No, I sure don't.
This is great. Okay, so her name is Ruth Payne Young, and we're going to call her Payne. We'll just call her Ruth the Younger, okay? Because there's the mom, who is Ruth Forbes Young, something. I can't remember now. It's like a 4 long one, and she's the other lady we spoke about. He marries a girl with the same exact name as his mom. So this gets yeah, I know. So they are both Ruth Payne Young, but she adds her Forbes in there because it's so confusing. And so she is an actual child of a CIA operative, which has never been let out before. There is a current show about her on Amazon. You have to pay a little bit for it. It's really good. And I'll tell you guys, she like up one side. She is like the perfect MK Ultra brain, or she's the most amazing actress I've ever seen. Cause she's like, no, I have never. What are you speaking about? Because her sister also is a psychologist or actual psychiatrist, I believe, for the CIA, and it's all declassified now. It just started coming out, and so she's kind of screwed because like she goes on this show and she's like, no, nothing to do with me. I didn't have anything to do with it. And why the hell is she even important, right? Like, I mean, who cares about these kids of this lady, right? This is just one of the declassified documents showing that she's a Quaker. And she was using this status as a missionary to go into other countries. Not only that, but stating that it admits her sister worked for an outfit, is what she calls it. And it goes on to further explain this in this memorandum. If you guys want to read every word you can, I just put it in here to prove, hey, they're out there. There's many more pages of this, but yeah, it's real. And why does that even matter? How does this fit in? Well, okay, we see Ruth right here. And oh my gosh, who is this? Well, that would be Lee Harvey Oswald's wife. So we're going to get into a situation here with poor, and I do say poor Lee Harvey Oswald, because he is surrounded, and I mean surrounded. And it starts from this seance on with people that are just completely absorbed into a complete situation of getting rid of JFK. And I dare say this is through Permindex ties. And I did do a whole show on that, but it is super interesting about how all of this goes. So just so everybody knows that, you know, these ties through Michael Payne, her husband, go into United Fruit Company, which ties into the Bay of Pigs. And then it ties into his boss, Dornberger. And then, just so you know, her dad's a fascist activist, and his name is Lyman Payne, who's working for the CIA, whose daughter's working for the CIA. Are we getting clearer now?
100%.
Yeah. So, right. This is not a good situation for poor Lee Harvey Oswald. Not that I'm saying he wasn't, you know, some sort of, I mean, I'm sure he's working for things as well. So when we speak about Lee Harvey Oswald, now we know, because a lot of this stuff is also coming out about David Ferrie and Oswald knowing each other in the CAP days. And so this photo is them together, even though he adamantly, Ferrie, denied ever knowing or meeting Fairy was there. They were actually quite chummy and they did know each other. And so for people that don't know this, it's very important to kind of break this down before we get into like what I think happened there and everything else, just because this is part of why I went down the
Yeah.
rabbit hole. So, also, Miss Ruth Payne, the younger, got him the job at the Dallas, Texas School Book Depository, who is owned by, do you know who that was owned by at the time?
I knew it before
I
because my
haven't.
friend and
You're
producer
good.
Cory Hughes does some incredible research into this. Have you had him on yet, by the way?
I haven't. I need to get his
Yeah,
contact
yeah,
information. I
yeah.
would love to talk to him. But yeah, so this is all owned by Admiral Byrd's
Oh,
cousin,
yeah.
the book
That's
depository.
crazy.
So yeah, she had just barely helped him get this job, and it's just super odd, obviously, about all of these weird little connections. And then we get into the next connection, which Ruth actually introduced Lee Harvey Oswald to our friend George de Mohrenschildt. And George de Mohrenschildt, oh, we could do a whole show on George de Mohrenschildt. George de Mohrenschildt, for people that don't know, he came over here and applied to originally be in the OSS, and they said, nah, bruh, because you were part of the Nazi situation. And, he was like, the hell you say, what? And all of this is supposedly so she can learn Russian. Don't forget, we're just learning Russian. We're in an affluent white community of people that speak Russian. Right. And so this is just almost ridiculous. I think it's funny that people actually bought this at the time, but then, I mean, we think about the times and people did trust government, the news, all these things back then. But the other thing I found out about good old George is something that I have never heard anyone else talk about. And I was just doing a little deep dive on George to figure, out some things about him. And let me tell you guys, he came over here a lot earlier than people like to credit. And old Georgie boy, he had him a job, and he had him a job with, Society of Cincinnati, double on both sides person. And that person's name is Jack Black Bouvier. And he worked for Mr. Jack Black Bouvier as Jackie O's horse trainer. And Jackie O loved him so much that she called him Uncle George. Huh. Weird, isn't it? Because he's completely involved in a whole bunch of stuff that goes very awry for good old Lee Harvey Oswald. And I guess I should just wrap up Lee Harvey Oswald on this part now, because eventually George begs for some help because he's got to go into some committees. This is a graphic photo. You can hide it if you want. But this is what happens to him because of this letter right here of him begging George Bush, the senior, for some help in this situation that he finds himself in, because he sort of one time felt a little bit bad about what he did say about Lee Harvey Oswald. And he was like, I'm not really sure if he did what he did, but like, he's a good guy. He didn't even say he didn't. He just slightly let in that he felt a tiny bit bad for the guy. And all of a sudden finds himself, called up to these committees where people are disappearing every time somebody gets called, by the way. They find him in barrels. They don't find him at all. Like, it just gets messy. I think there were 17 deaths at the beginning of that whole situation. And I think that was one of the reasons why they decided to wrap that up kind of quickly, because people were dying left and right. But George Bush is his very good friend. And this is declassified at this point. So you can read this letter where he talks about how he knows him and, can you help me? And funny enough, they actually were roommates together. And I guess it was through an uncle or someone that he knew George Clearback from college. And so it's a twisted web we weave when we speak about all these people that come up extremely important at a later point. And I think it was 4 days later, George decided he didn't want to be on the earth anymore. So he's not. There's some graphic pictures there of that and what happened to him. He was shot. I believe it was with a shotgun, and I believe it was more than once, but it was very messy and lots of very strange and unusual things. I think if I remember correctly, now I don't have my other notes right here. I think they actually ended up killing his kids. It's really sad. It's not good at all. Oh, there's Michael. I knew I put that picture in there. I was like, where did that go? And there is a very handsome picture of his boss, Dornberger. Oh boy. And so, yeah, still got his Nazi little mustache then. I do find it interesting, and I like people to understand this connection through Dornberger to von Braun because of the space situation that we have at hand, which is probably what got JFK the stamp of approval. Maybe there were more reasons than there were more reasons than one why he needed to leave, and actually Bobby was the reason, one of them, but that was on a different edge of things. When people say the mob did it, or the government did it, or this or that, yes is the answer. Yeah.
I'm fascinated by the level of intricacy, the layers. When you said it's a web, that's an understatement. There seems to be layers upon layers. There's compartmentalization. There's people involved that don't know what the other person is doing, and it seems to be so well thought out and put together. I wonder how just humans alone could have put everything together, and that is just for the JFK assassination. You look at all these other operations,
and maybe they weren't alone.
Yeah, I think we're going to get to that.
It's so good. And 2 weeks after this particular photo was taken, about going to space, and they were going to join with the Russians. A lot of people don't know this, and heads up, Dark Journalist, for this information. He's great. You guys can check his work out. I like to give credit where credit is due, whether it be a book or another podcaster, and he's done a lot of research on this, and so has Hughes, your friend, not Howard Hughes, yeah. Cory Hughes. Although Howard Hughes,
he goes by Howard sometimes.
So there we go. I would, well, maybe not the end of it, Howard. The beginning, Howard, was great. And just shortly after this was taken with von Braun, that is when JFK is no longer on this earth. So, there is some hostility, if you want to even call it that. I would say angst, anger, hatred, put in any kind of word you want for the Russians, okay, with the Nazis. The Nazis hated the Russians because we would not have won that war without them. First of all, the Russians get skipped on a lot. More Russians died than anybody in that war, including victims. And so people can look this up, but this was like a brutal war. And half of the Nazis went to Russia and half of the Nazis came here with paperclip. Well, there was fights over the best and brightest and different things. But, von Braun was extremely upset when he found out that they were going to give some of this knowledge that he personally was bringing to the table to Russia. Like, he was like, you traitor, like, that is insane. And also, they had that animosity between them, but also they were worried about who was going to make it there first, because remember, some of the other Nazis went to Russia as well. And so there was all this different chaos, and in between the chaos we get the Cuban Missile Crisis, where we almost blew each other up. And this is why Kennedy was so interested in working with them, because he was like, please, I think we should all come together, because there are things out there flying around that are not ours, and you say they're not yours, and so I don't want to get blown up because there's something else out there. And yeah, so we get into this, UAPs, I guess they want to call them at this point, but that's exactly right, like UFO type situation, which they so obfuscate. And also, P.S., with the JFK releases, we still don't have Bobby's stuff. We still don't have the Joe and Itty's papers. There's a lot going on that didn't get put in there, and so don't think that's all there is and that's all she wrote. That's just not true. And so here's the picture of Werner von Braun in that theological Mormon film. I just put that in there because it's hysterical. Yeah. Picture's worth 1,000 words.
Do you know if it's available anywhere?
Not my writing. That I do not know. That would actually be super interesting to know, because I mean,
probably extremely difficult to find if it is.
Yeah. I couldn't even find the name of it. It just said theological film. And so I'm like, okay, there's something up with that, Yeah. And then we've got Joe, and these problems with Daddy-O. Dad, the sins of the father, right? This gets into so much. I'm gonna eventually do a Joe episode. I've done an episode. I think I've done 4 different ones now. I've done JFK, RFK, Jackie O, and there was one more, but and then a Permindex one on top of it, because all of this is so interesting. But Joseph Kennedy, he was not able to become president the senior because he was so sympathetic to Nazi ideology and he actively promoted it. Okay. And he was anti Semitic and anti communism. And it led him to view this Hitler solution as these world problems, as noted, when he was over as the ambassador in Great Britain, which people don't talk about. The family lived there. Like when JFK was little, like that's where they lived. Like this wasn't, these kids were born and bred for this, honestly. And at the same time, he is making money when no one else is, okay, during the war. And, people talk about, well, speaking of Permindex, his little, bootlegging operation. We'll just call it that. There's not 100% proof for that I can see. There's a lot of speculation. But like I said, at some point now, he has been checked off the list for future president because literally they called him a Nazi sympathizer. And so he is breeding Joseph Kennedy Jr., senior is, and his admiration for the regime and Hitler and everything. And we've got this stuff going on. And then you see the Mormons pop up and you're like, well, why the hell would the Mormons pop up? Look, you guys, the Mormons pop up because of the pure and simple fact that we back then, and I say we Mormons, had the same ideology as the Nazis did. They were very against races. They just were. I don't know how else to say it. Yeah, it's unfortunate, but that's just the truth. And so, yeah, anyway, we will leave that for just a moment. We'll hold on to that and get back to some of these other little players and at the ball. We'll call it actually at the Roundtable Foundation, which is what they end up calling it. So that's very interesting. But this lady here, she wasn't there, but it's very interesting of who is she? Like, why is this? And do you know who the man is in the photo?
Dulles?
Alan Dulles.
Yeah.
It is. And this is Alan Dulles's girlfriend, and her name is Mary Bancroft. But Mary Bancroft is tied into the twisted web of lies and things we weave by Ruth the Older. Ruth the Older is her very best friend in the world. Right. Super interesting. So the other people that were there, they go on as well. Vonnie Beck, she is a suspected pilot for the U.S. Navy. You cannot prove anything on her. She was really hard to vet. There were different interesting thoughts about her and different stuff. I couldn't find any actual solid real life proof of like who she was. And that's weird because anytime we find that, we know we're missing something, right? We know that there's something that they don't want you to know because of that fact. And so she's, like I said, hard to pinpoint. We got Lyle Watson, and he's kind of this weird, I think I have a photo of him, alternative scene guru guy. He's very strange looking, but here he is. He's this author. He doesn't look so odd here, but he gets into this woo-woo about how plants have feelings. I'm not kidding. After this whole thing happens, and it's a very cosmic Law and Order. All of them do this. And his book, one of his books is called Supernature. And see how strange he looks here. Like, see the difference. He's a biologist, though. Like, why on earth would this biology guy turn into the super woo-woo biology guy? And he even turns out later to write a book influencing Star Trek. And so, you just kind of go, what? Gifts of Unknown Things is another book he writes. And so this says a true story of nature, healing, and initiation from the Indonesia's Dancing Island. And so these people are just coming up like everywhere. It's almost, it's almost unreal how strange things get with this group, like especially with all of the contacts to JFK when he's not even like a thing for them at this point. Okay, we're talking 1950s. This is early on. And so we've got all of these key players. And like I said, they form this, foundation, the Round Table Foundation. And that I do not have this in my notes, but it becomes that I found it in one of my research articles and I meant to write it down, but it also has a very interesting namesake. And so if people want to look that up, not only for King Arthur, but there was something else. And I can't quite remember off the top of my tongue, but I'll think about it. But it had something else to do with government once again. And so we're just seeing all of this strange weird stuff at the same time. Like I said, this foundation is they get this lab by the sea and they use this donated barn. Okay. And guess what it's sponsored by? General Foods. Okay. So they're trying to do neuroactivity checking on animals while they're eating. And they want to know if your brain changes at the time that you're eating. Okay. Like if there's actual food changes and dopamine releases and what you eat. And we know that later this becomes absolutely important. So very interesting there. General Foods is also going to come up at Watergate. And I'll just say that now. Through Bob Bennett and the Mullen Company, many people don't really focus on old Bobby Boy, but Bobby Boy, I don't have a photo of him in this one, but I focus heavily on him in my Mormon Mafia series. And he is a Mormon. He is a senator from Utah. He is also not just a Mormon. He is a Mormon elite. When I say he is the grandson of Heber J. Grant. Well, Heber J. Grant actually went to Nazi Germany during the Olympics, and I have photos of him underneath a swastika flag eating, and his right-hand man, Reuben, I can't remember his last name right now. I'll think of it in a moment, but he gets so into this that he kind of gets in trouble because they're doing the whole Heil Hitler. And Mormons were one of the few people that were not persecuted in Nazi Germany, just FYI. They left them alone. And also, they become an integral piece to why genealogy gets mainstreamed by the Mormons, for the Mormons, through Howard Hughes, through another man named Bill Gay. And he does this with connections through, big surprise, the CIA and those cards from the IBM. And IBM is really fascinating because on the head of IBM, this board, not part of IBM, they're really good to mention this because if you Google, was this lady a part of IBM? They will say, nope. Oh, okay, cool. She sat on the board. She wasn't a part of the company, but it's Bill Gates' mother. People skip her a lot because they're so focused on the eugenics side of dad that they just miss the fact that mommy was right there along with. And these cards get turned over with the okay from IBM, with the okay of the CIA, declassified briefs on all of this to William Gay, who is running Howard Hughes's empire for a big part of his life. And he starts putting all this genealogy uploaded into computers, which is super interesting with what we know about, supercomputers and things telling us about supercomputers, like, digging trolls underneath your house. And that's how the supercomputer got invented. Like, just so people know, Seymour Cray. And if people think I'm full of shit, like I thought the same thing. Like I literally said, that's ridiculous. What? Look it up. It's
well, not only do these people tell you the desired outcomes and agendas through previous literature and papers and release documents, but if you just step back and look at the progression of events, you start to get a picture of where they want things to go and how they want it to occur.
Oh, you led me into my next piece of work, and maybe you know this already. I don't know. Did you, or was that awesome coincidence?
Awesome coincidence.
Awesome. Well, this piece of literature was written well before JFK was ever born, and this is called The Cloud That Lifted. And his name is Maurice. Oh my gosh, I'm not sure. I'll do my best. Maeterlinck, maybe Maeterlinck. And he wrote a book all about the assassination of a president orchestrated by a group of people that were doing all kinds of woo-woo stuff. And yeah, it's like almost word for word, like literally on a grassy knoll. There's wow. So many. It's bananas. Yeah. Like it's not a little bit. It's not just like the king ritual. It's literal. It's weird. And so people can look that up, and it's a really fascinating thing. He wrote one other book, and I wanted to throw this in here, Bluebird of Happiness, and it's all about basically Project Bluebird. And so this is about spying and making sure people are happy all the time and all this weird stuff. And it totally goes down this weird rabbit hole. I'm just saying these people get their ideas from somewhere. You're not wrong. So all of these people that got together, now we've finally gotten through all of the people.
Oh, this is great
and all of my tangents. Okay, good. Because sometimes it's hard for me to figure out, like, do you go through all the people first or do you break it apart? Right. It's all over the place. But yeah, so they must have either got this information from the Nine, which I speculate that they did. They met quite often through this Roundtable Foundation. They start doing a lot of things together for government, different things. It's very odd connections for people that are just supposed to be hippie woo-woos of the time, right? Well, that's because it's supposed to be. Because, we'll do a fun one. Well, the Doors' dad, he started a war, for people that don't know. This is all absolutely like...
Yeah, Jim Morrison's dad.
Enveloped. Yes. And so he was involved as a general in the whole accidental, we let off a bomb. And then, Japan comes. So it's very strange when you look at all of these things and people say, well, that's just a coincidence, or the mamas and the papas, or these other people, and you guys can check out Laurel Canyon stuff. I haven't done anything on it, but Cosmic Peach does a great job. And I'll tell you guys, when you start pulling it apart and you say, well, that's just a coincidence. Well, how many coincidences are we going to have before we say that's just a plan? I just think that that's super strange. I don't know. Oh, yeah. For me, I'm going, okay, this all seems pretty out there, and at the same time, we've got all of these people that come in and they're inventing things. You're right. This super awesome technology is coming through to people at this time, but also the Nine they are insanely obsessed with one specific thing. And this is where I think it's very important to explain this, and why I think Howard Hughes goes a little cuckoo later. And they want us to stop bombing the shit out of the universe. Okay. They do. And that's one of the things that they really focused on and they speak about to them at that time. Now, there isn't a lot documented about what they learned through these years of contact and different seances, but we know that things start changing, and we know that somehow the ether was pierced enough for these things to come through. And when we talk about all of that, it's odd that we look at things and we say, well, this can't be, it doesn't mean anything, right? But this psychological experiment, basically, of piercing the veil, I'm going to just say, is right here with this. And they talk about how if you get enough people, and especially a group of people, to all feel the same feeling at the same time, that it is extremely popular, as far as not popular, powerful, to bring part of that to fruition. Okay. So they saw this, then they've also got this, basically a speech saying, quit bombing shit. And Howard Hughes has been said to have talked to extraterrestrials as well. And the same message came through to the point where he takes one of his guys in the Age of Secrets, this book, John Meyer, that's the author. He's still alive, I think. And I mean, it's a great book. He was an insider. When I say insider, I mean, he was right there. Now, do not confuse him with Johnny Meyer. There are two. One's Meier, one's Meyer. It gets super confusing. But when we speak about this, he was put on the Atomic Energy Commission from Howard Hughes, basically bought his position into that to help that stop, because he was so concerned about what was coming through. And then if you read old things like Steiner's work, or if you read old Tesla stuff, the very things they never focus on. How often do you ever hear about Steiner? How often do you ever hear about
Right.
D? You know, D only got popularized because of Crowley, to be quite honest. Otherwise, his stuff would have died out too, right? We would not have any of this information. It would just be woo-woo stupid stuff. Well, that woo-woo stupid stuff was exactly what we're talking about now. It was a seance. They don't call it that. They say he was channeling, blah, 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 angels, whatever. I'm sorry, guys. Like, channeling whatever it is, it always gets everyone in trouble. And you might lose your wife.
Were you able to find any specific details about the channeling or quote unquote seance itself?
Yes, only that it happened, and that Dr. Vinod, this Dr. Vinod was supposedly there. This India guru, was supposedly there. Well, here's the problem. They called it just high weirdness after that. This is what they call it. But I will tell you, everything for these people changed afterward. Like examining their lives after the fact is so integral that we have to look at it and say they clearly they learned something. Because what does Puharik do? He stops cutting his hair. He starts being really hippie woo. He starts getting into mushrooms and drugs. And this Vinod guy, you cannot find anything about him. Okay. There is like no way to substantiate if he's even real. Some people say he was part of their like channeling, or possibly drug. I mean, always there's drugs. Listen, people want to say Joseph Smith was on mushrooms, and people want to say Joseph Smith channeled. Yes. The answer is yes. There is, and Crowley goes through this, which is so funny. And I think it's why they demonize him so bad. Not to say he wasn't, look, he was definitely dark. Okay. I'm not saying he didn't go there, but he knew stuff, right? He knew a lot, and he loved Joseph Smith, and he hated religion. So what does that tell you, right? Like, he admired him, called him a moon child.
Right.
Very interesting. Born on December 23rd, P.S. No coincidence there at all. To probably a witchcraft family, but that's fine. Since I've seen you last, I found out their genealogy traces right back to Salem, Massachusetts.
Interesting.
Society of Cincinnati comes up huge. But all of these people change everything they're doing at this point, basically. And Puharik then goes on these wild chases, to Israel. He's out in New Mexico. He's all over the place after this. And he's definitely working with mind-altering substances after this. So we see this, if they did have something then, it exacerbated, right? And we've got that lady, don't forget, that just up and dies. First of all, where'd all her money go? Because when we're talking about Astor money, we're talking about holy shit money, right? Yeah. And so we're talking about that. We're talking about, different things that they probably found out. And we're talking, and I bring up Steiner because he definitely states there are certain things and certain motions and whatnot that can pierce the ether and let things through. But also we have to talk about levels, right? So the first people you're going to get, it's kind of like when you go to high school. My grandpa always told me, if you're friends with the first people that come up to you, you're probably going to be in trouble, because those are usually people that can't make friends with other people because they know they're up to no good. And, I kind of feel like that was a definite.
Right. Yeah.
And so we see all of this go on. We see the company that they keep. We see the change of direction for every single one of them. And we see, most importantly for me, for my studies, was this connection and surrounding of not only JFK, but Lee Harvey Oswald in every way that you can imagine. Because George de Mohrenschildt, as we know, is connected with the Bronfman brothers, right? Which is connected to Seagram's, which is connected to Joe Kennedy. And also we see connections with Joe Kennedy. Now I'm going to be clear on this part. This is speculation, but the speculation connect through Onassis. And we know that Onassis is running his ships and never loses a one during the war, not a one. But there's a lot of speculation that he's running opium, through this time, and also personal stash for Joe Sr. And there were promises supposedly made with Howard Hughes, who's back and forth buying all kinds of politicians at this time, right? We see it. And I'm going, okay, what's the connection there? And immediately following Howard Hughes's death, Johnny Meyer, not John Meyer, Johnny Meyer is employed by Onassis along with many of his other Mormon friends. And I'm just going, okay. And all the Mormon friends, by the way, are connected to the CIA or FBI or some such thing. And so when we see that, you have to step back and say, is the whole world orchestrated by something that happened at that time? Fascinating thought, because, we see religions. I mean, I'll give an example. John Dee does the original workings, but then after this, we see multiple people speaking to intelligences, and Joseph Smith does call it intelligences many times, which means a demon. And he's not only just channeling, he's like pulling these things down from the ether with certain sigils. Okay. These are witchcraft items, so to speak. But however you want to label it, it wasn't by accident that they were there. Okay. They were summoned. And we see this time and time again, like Parsons, like Joseph.
The Babylon working, supposedly they botched that, didn't close it out right. And now we've got these dark entities just running amok.
Right, which is what I think Hughes actually was haunted by. And I think he was trying to close the door. I think he possibly made a deal with the devil. And I'll tell you why. This kind of goes into the other one, but it doesn't matter. I mean, I can show the pictures or not, but it's fine. I can tell you the info. He got arrested fairly young, in his 30s, and many people don't know about this. Howard Hughes was arrested for killing someone.
Really?
He hit a pedestrian. Yes. And I have the actual photo of him being arrested. And it's interesting that it does not get spoken of very often. And it makes you wonder, did he? Yep. I can even show you if you'll bear with me. I'll open that file. I found this like obscure information because I read so many books, and I'm always trying to find that smoking gun, like, whatever we can do to prove things, because it's hard to prove these things. Really, it's not easy. And I try to look for the tie that's going to be, is this real life? Like, did this really happen? Can you prove it? And so with this arrest, I often wonder, did he make a deal with the devil to get out of trouble at that time? Not only that, but this is his arrest here. And I actually have the date somewhere, but I could probably Google it. It is knowledge if you know what to say. It's really not that hard to find. And all of a sudden, the pedestrian on the side of the road that saw it, he said, at first they were like, he was erratic, he was drunk, blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden he changes his tune. And so he walked from this. Okay. So fatal car accident on July 11th, 1936. Hughes struck and killed pedestrian Gabriel S. Meyer. Meyer. Super interesting. And this is easy. If you guys Google it, it'll come right up. It even says it was on the corner of 3rd Street and Lorraine in LA, blah, blah, blah. And they took him to the hospital. But this witness said he was going too fast. He was driving erratic. He's booked on suspicion of negligent homicide and held overnight. So we see this, and it's when he's fairly younger,
Yeah.
right? And then all of a sudden we see this drastic change in Howard Hughes not too long after this. It really makes one wonder what happened there.
Yeah.
Did somebody approach him and say, "Hey, you want to get out of jail free card? You got to play the game. Play. You got to be in with us because I'll tell you guys like and I have some stuff on a guy that we can probably let me double check that we might be able to cross over into this Mormon mafia just a little bit. But this other guy that they tortured, basically, if you're not in the club, it's very interesting what happens to you because there is a Mormon guy that figured out all of Tesla's work and he like showed the experiments on it and everything. And then all of a sudden, his life was made complete shambles. So we see this time and time again with the people that won't play the game.
Yeah.
I don't think that there's any question on the fact that my only question in it all is it all orchestrated, right? Is everything
That's the big
orchestrated?
question because, like I was saying earlier, it seems too intricate. There's too many pieces that fit together and work to the benefit of these parasites. It seems like all these high impact events throughout history, since, well, we can look at World War II at least, the high impact events that followed seemed to be stepping stones for the next event, and they all had these outcomes that really led to where we're at right now with the emerging technological surveillance state.
Not only that, but
Right,
Bluebeam,
yeah.
right? Project Bluebeam.
Technology and the occult
And
has always been intertwined, especially if you have eyes to see all the corporate logos, the mythology that goes into some of these tech companies and their ideologies. It's all there, and it's really emerging into the open, and people seem to not even give a shit.
yeah, you're not wrong. You're not wrong on that one because it just seems like, okay, we can talk all day about all these old people and they'll say, like, well, that doesn't even matter. I mean, they're old. It's done. Oh, that's just a coincidence. Blah, 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 blah. Right. I'm going to give you guys a little bit of coincidence here after I show these photos, but it can't be like we're talking about people that were doing things after this happened that it was just very strange. Like, okay, for example, Puharik also helped with the Intellitron. Do you know this Intellitron thing that they started making in the 50s? This weird
I've heard of it.
big. So, okay, so Howard Hughes funded it and we've got Puharik helping with it. We know that the Nazis were doing all kinds of seances and we know that they far surpassed our knowledge in any way, shape, or form at that point in time, as far as planes, submarines.
Yeah.
We're talking about crazy stuff here. And it's not that crazy of a notion to step back and go, okay, who sold their soul for what and why?
Yeah.
Right. And then you've got every single person in this, like, okay, we didn't even get to Marina, the daughter of a KGB person, like possible FBI/CIA connection. Every single person is in the government in this story and nobody bats an eye. We've got George de Mohrenschildt, who's definitely, he wanted to be OSS. So he is definitely in contact with all of these people, but he's also in contact and on the board with Perpendex, So what the hell is happening there? But every time we see all this stuff, I often wonder, and this is the photo I was trying to find from earlier before I close this one out and move to the next. This is Puharik and a 15-year-old girl. This is that girl, Belita. Her name is Belita, and she has pictures of everything. She was just a normal kid before this, but she was always, she could see or hear things. She was, very close to the veil. We'll just put it that way. Apparently, even at 5, she said she was possessed while playing the piano in this photograph because she would know how to do things musically that she didn't know how to do. And this girl, like, she could play literally Chopin-inspired numbers for this. And this is why she went to meet the queen. And it was a big, huge deal. But, like, I think that first photo of her look sus
Yeah.
AF. And then she speaks about being in this Faraday cage built by Andrea Puharich, and was tortured, literally electrocuted a whole bunch to make all of this come about. So this is her now.
Oh,
She has this band, Satanic Corpse, The Door of
wow.
Death. If you guys can't see this, it's pretty sad. A little bit scary. So
Huh.
I'm not saying, anything per se that she's, taken over, but it's very
It
interesting,
is.
right? And so when we look at these things and all of this evidence, we have to at least say there's some merit somewhere to the woo woo, because I get it, right? It sounds ridiculous. Okay, so I will put this back toward Bush, since we did already speak of
Right.
Bush, but I do want to mention a couple key things. Bush doesn't seem like any big player other than the guy that died, and like that's over. Well, not true. If you look into his connections with Zapata Oil, you will get led exactly back to the Bay of Pigs and also to Project Azorion, which Howard Hughes was literally with George Bush on the same area at the same time, supposedly trying to go after that submarine, why he's supposedly drilling for oil. So there's connections all over the place, and all of these connections lead right back up to churches. Like, as far as rich people, this is rich people shit.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not saying the Mormon people themselves are a problem. I'm talking about, people like E. Perry Thomas, who bought most of, if not all of, the hotels for Howard Hughes under the guys with Gay giving permission. But this guy is the quiet kingmaker. He was the banker. He shouldn't be doing that. That's a definite conflict of interest. He is one of the biggest bankers in Las Vegas. And by the way, a Mormon, and he was tapping into the Teamsters pension fund for that, just FYI. And also, to add the icing on the cake, he's a paratrooper for the FB or for the CIA in the war. So, like, come on, like, that's too
Yeah.
much,
Oh
too
man.
much. And he knows Steve Wynn and was financed by he was financed as well by E. Perry Thomas, and he was said to be his fifth son. That they were so close, he was like a son. And so when we see these things and we see these players all come together in such a strange and like completely unusual way, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
odd. But like, even this, so people know, like, as far as where the technology goes and what happens, we know Skunkworks comes about, right? And Howard Hughes is a big part of all of that. But just so you guys know, Ben Rich, a pioneer in stealth technology, propelled the US Air Force to supremacy through Skunkworks as their president, and he is a Mormon. Please tell me why they're everywhere. And when they talk about Howard Hughes's aides, quote
Mm.
unquote, no, these were people running his company, and they became prominent, extremely important businessmen afterward and continue to this day. In fact, if you guys watch The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, you'll know the name Heather Gay, because Heather Gay is his daughter in law. And this is a photo of her right here. And this is his son's son. So, yeah, the
Mm.
wife. These people, even in your reality shows, are so placed perfectly for a reason. So do not think for 1 second that the world is not a
It
stage.
100%
I'm just
is.
saying.
I was talking with Michael Hoffman the other day, and we were discussing what we're touching on earlier, how it seems like there's some greater force that is assisting orchestrate all of these events. And he speculates the possibility that, yes, they've made contact with something, some kind of energy or intelligence that they basically surf
Yeah.
off of, and it propels their agenda and connects everything and causes these weird synchronicities, which I find very interesting.
100%. And people always speak about, Howard Hughes being doped up on opioids. Well, that would also lead you into a different realm, just like the
Mm.
mushrooms would, just like and he was such a germaphobe. He's not going to eat magic mushrooms. Nope. Nope. No way. And so we see these people change their whole personality, right? We see them completely evolve into other people basically. And to this day, just so people know, and this is probably why the Joe and Itty's files didn't get released, because there are people that are currently to this day extremely important and very good friends. Like old Richard Nixon was super close to President Trump, and President Trump had connections through Roy Cohn and actually owned one of international it was Resorts International that he owned for some time, and had his own hotel just like Howard Hughes, hiding all this stuff. And what was it called? The Atlantis. So not only the above but the below. I do believe a lot of this has to go into Casey, which, you know, I haven't done a full deep dive there, but I will tell you this. Casey talks about a magic rock, and that has my interest peaked.
Yeah.
Right. That magic rock, by the way, lapis lazuli is what it was made out of, supposedly, was exactly what Onassis's fireplace and a whole bunch of his things were made on his big, huge yacht, the Christina. Right. And so I'm just telling you guys enough things to show you, like, whoa, on the connections. And it isn't just political. Yeah. We are talking about entities. Honestly, you know, we can't prove what was said or whatever, but we can prove the direction of their research and the change of their trajectory after that happened. Period. Yeah. We've got some lady that had nothing to do with government all of a sudden being a huge part of, you know, like NWO stuff. Like, what is it? Why? What is happening there? Yeah.
100%. You always hear about these tech guys, these nerd dorks trying to destroy the planet by opening wormholes, and they're all microdosing and doing psychedelics as well. So it seems to me that they are utilizing this as a kind of mediation or communication tool with whatever the hell that is.
Well, look at Elon, for heaven's sakes. And to mention Elon, just FYI, for those that don't know, he grew up so close to Netanyahu that he called him uncle. Yeah, that's from his own dad's mouth. And not only that, but his number one financial advisor, just like Howard Hughes, is a Mormon, and his name is Jared Birchall. And I'm sorry to say, you guys, like, he doesn't even have the credentials to be in that position. So what is going on there? And guess what they were doing at the time when they met? Digging holes for the Boring Company. Look, the above and the below are so important. And that's why I believe that saying, as above, so below, right? We have to understand that there's so much more to the world than what we can see on a surface level. There's a reason why they made sure after the 70s hit so big with everybody getting into woo-woo that they killed it dead in the 80s, right? Then we get complete corporatization and everything goes underground. So, but if you look at these rich people, look at Liz Taylor, look at Howard Hughes, look at Nixon, for heaven's sakes. He had his own psychic.
They're in it. They're
the psychic also,
man.
Yeah. He said for the psychic told him to tell Donald Trump to run for president because he'd win. Look, you know, this is on paper. Yeah. These are on paper. And he speaks of the aliens too. Like E. Howard Hunt does. All of these people talk about Watergate being about that, you know. I don't know. And when we speak about these things, I find it, and this will be my last little piece, I find it interesting that we know there's a lot of reference to keys, okay, when we speak about this stuff. And you'll always hear like the keys of Atlantis, right? The keys of knowledge, the keys. Well, the Mormons have always long said that they have the true form of masonry and that they have the true keys, okay? Yeah. And right now, during this time, we're seeing this huge chess game that's coming kind of to an end, or a poker game might be better because there's more players. And people are starting to put their hands out on the table, like the Mormons buying Westminster Abbey, because that just happened. Look that one up. Like the Mormons being able to build down the street from the Vatican in 2018, one of their sacred temples that they've never been able to do that before. Like them being in close with the Pope and shaking the statue of St. Peter's hand in a Masonic grip. Look, these people know some stuff, but the clincher is, for me, for the Mormons, is the Salt Lake City temple is being renovated right now. And they took out something that was really important to the people, which was called the Fountain of Living Waters. And it was a representation to them with Joseph Smith as a whole, it's a religious thing. So it was important to them. And it's always been there. Well, they took it out to recreate a new layout for the grounds. And it looks identical to the Vatican's now. And it looks like a keyhole. And it is so identical. I mean, it's identical. And then I started looking up, I was just randomly looking up the keyhole and logos. You mentioned those earlier. And I found an old logo of the Onassis Foundation. And I'll be darned if it isn't identically the same. When people say the one world order is coming, I have news for you guys. It's here. And, there's a lot of different quotes about this and about communism. And one of the quotes is, "We won't have to go to war with your children. We'll feed them communism bit by bit. And before you know it," and this was Hegel, "it'll be there in your children."
Well,
and
look at the message that the extraterrestrials gave us. They don't want us to use nukes and blow us up anymore. So we get technology to mind control the masses. We don't have to use that kind of force anymore. They'll just be all under the control of the parasites anyway.
Well, and 100%. Look at what they can do with a meme. Look at the Keck meme. Such a small, dumb thing. Like, I remember thinking, this is so stupid until about toads. Joseph Smith spoke about toads. But yeah, like this esoteric knowledge, and that is what it is. This mystery school, Mystery Babylon, continued throughout the ages. And I don't care if you think that, some of it was presented by a shill or not. You might want to listen.
Yes. 100%.
They have to tell truth with the lies, or it doesn't make any sense.
Right.
So watch your intention, because even our words, where do words come from? They're Babylonian. Yeah, our spelling, our words come a lot from there. And why is that? Well, because it's a sigil, right? Watch yourself.
Yes, this was excellent information. Heidi, thank you so much. Can't wait to get further into the Mormon Mafia. We can do that next time. So before we close out, remind the audience one more time how they can find all your content.
Absolutely. Thanks so much again for having me on. I love talking about this stuff because my husband's over it and nobody wants to hear it at my house, you guys.
My audience appreciates it.
Thank you.
Yes.
It's a fun rabbit hole, and we can get into Watergate and everything next time, actually. The Mormons are tied up in all of it, and they definitely were not just nursemaids. So if you guys want to check out a little preview of it, my episodes are always different. So even if I come on again, it will be revamped because we're constantly finding out new information. But I do have 1, 2, 3, and 4 Mormon Mafia on my podcast, and you will see different little rabbit holes I went down, which have evolved. So I'm always glad to be able to come on and speak again. Again, find me at any of your favorite pod chasers, unfilteredrisespodcast.com. If you do not want to go to a pod chaser, and YouTube gets lacked on. Look, guys, I do it maybe once a week, or I put the lives on there that I'm a part of because they hate my stuff and I get dinged and I don't want to lose my channel. So
right on. Well, Heidi, thank you so much. We'll definitely be doing this again. Until next time, everyone, have an excellent evening. We will talk again tomorrow.